Hello, welcome to Sideways. Martin wanted to call this week's episode "You Can't Please All of the People All of the Time," but I thought that was too long, so I didn't. You can't please all the people all of the time. This week we're talking about what happens when we set ourselves unrealistic targets, why we do it, and how to stop it. There's also quite a lot of football chat, for which I apologise to those of you who don't like football. It's mostly in context and mostly ridiculous. Unrelenting Standards. Hello.
Hello.
Have you got notifications turned off?
I have actually, yes. I managed to remember to do that this morning, which I'm quite proud of myself.
That's good. That'll be something you'll be able to reflect on later and realise that you've achieved today.
I will, yes. It's. I think that the fact it's taken me 18 months to remember, you can't rush these things.
No, well, I'm not going to criticise because obviously, I wouldn't do that.
That would be wrong, wouldn't it?
Do you tend to reflect at the end of a day on the things that you've achieved?
No. Do you?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. Well, maybe you should try it.
Oh, I will. I will try that. I haven't really bothered to do that. I suppose is it good practice?
I think it can be. If you get to the end of the day and you think about things that maybe didn't go the way that you wanted them to, and then you think about things that you were, pleased about or gave you a moment of joy, it's quite a good way of kind of putting one's life into perspective. Is
it? Okay, well, I'll give it a try. I'll let you know how I get on.
I mean, obviously, I know that it'll be difficult for you to think of anything that went well, that you've had a hand in.
No, I'm just thinking, you've told me to do this in probably 18 months' time, it might click into place in the head.
I'll check with you again at the beginning of 2023 then.
If you could, mate. Yeah, I'll see how I've got on now. I might have just started, but that very day.
Anyway, farmers market today?
No, it's the third Sunday, which is next week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it would be a bit warm to go today anyway.
No, it'd be lovely, but I'm not. I could go there, but no one. I'd be standing in the field on my own.
Yeah, but at least you wouldn't have to queue.
I wouldn't have to queue. wouldn't be buying any coffee or anything, would I? Well, just before we start, I wanted to. It looks like the last couple of weeks been talking about us being social influence. Seems to have happened again.
Oh no, really? What's happened?
Well, there's a program on Channel 4 called Football's Gambling Addiction. You saw it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did see it. Yeah, it was very good. Yeah.
It was. Well, we covered that issue, didn't we, over 6 months ago? As you remember, back in season 3, episode 1, we discussed how integrated the gambling industry has become in the sport. You remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah, I think you might be kind of stretching the limits of what you believe to be our influence there. If you think that our episode might have had some influence on Channel 4 commissioning that program.
Sure it did. I think Ruth Davidson should be in touch with us and say thank you very much for reviving my flagging career. Now I've moved into the House of Lords. Give me something to talk about because she loves football.
She does, although I think I messaged you, didn't I, when we were watching it? I did enjoy that bit at the end where she was showing off her silky skills. She looked as if she may well have been, in that position at school where you'd be the last person to be picked by one of the two captains.
I think, yeah. Well, yeah, she didn't look comfortable on the ball. Let's put it that way, yeah.
Well, I don't suppose that happened to you, did it? I expect you got picked quite early on.
I did,
You're probably one of the captains, weren't you?
I was doing the picking normally, yeah.
It was always me and Dave Collymore that were last getting picked.
Well, yeah, you ended up in goal, I suppose, and that's normally what happens.
I played in goal for the school, actually. I played in goal for my primary school, and we didn't win a single game, but we did draw 1-1 at West Peckham. The only reason, I think, if I remember rightly, the only reason I played in that game was because our regular goalkeeper, Jonathan Briggs, or Braggs, I can't remember quite which one it was, in the warm-up, he dived to save a shot, got all muddy and started crying. So I got the gig.
Did you? Did you reflect it? Did you reflect on your glory when you let him one in at the end of that day?
I don't think I did. I mean, I think I realised my limitations. I enjoyed playing in goal, but I realised my limitations. Probably not at the time, but certainly on reflection, I was reasonably hopeless.
I mean, I was thinking, do you have a? I mean, we always used to have a favourite Scottish team when we were kids as well. Did you ever have one?
I don't think I ever had a favourite Scottish team, although I always used to enjoy when the results came on a Saturday afternoon, the result from Hamilton Academicals.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well,
I'll make them my favourite Scottish team.
All right.
Okay.
From my dad always used to say his favourite Scottish team, and I followed in his footsteps. It was Cowdenbeath. He just liked the name. You know, my dad wasn't a big football fan anyway, but he just loved the name.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? It's nice to say. I think that's probably why I liked Hamilton Academicals.
Yeah, well, Cowdenbeath, because I still do follow. They're sort of they're semi-pro really. They're in League Two up in Scotland. So they're in the 4th tier. It's on my bucket list to see Cowdenbeath play before I die. Really?
Have you got a bucket list?
No, I've just started one now. Number one, watch Cowdenbeath.
I'm sure we said we were going to do an episode on bucket lists. Because I don't. Yeah, I think so. Because I'm not a fan of them.
Okay, all right, we'll do that then. I'm going to get one together anyway.
I would say we just done it. Bucket lists. I'm not a fan of them.
They're rubbish. Okay. Well, I've got one item in mind, so it doesn't really even qualify as a list.
Hang on, talking about bucket lists, I was reading you might have seen it, I was reading in the news this morning about that guy, this mystery, I say it's a guy, perhaps it isn't a guy, but the person who has paid $28 million to go on this kind of space trip with Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. Did you see that?
No.
Right, so, that's what's happened. Someone's bid $28 million to go on this trip that he's planning later in the year.
Wow.
Which I thought, that's quite expensive, isn't it? And then I read that the trip is likely to last about 10 minutes.
Oh, my God.
So that's costing him $2.8 million a minute, that's quite expensive, isn't it, really?
It's staggering wealth to be able to afford it in the first place, that's for sure. But it's not. You wouldn't call it particularly great value for money, but if it's a once in a lifetime trip, which almost definitely would be, perhaps he thinks it's worthwhile. But I think I can certainly think of where that money could be used more usefully.
Yeah, and if I had that money, I'd be paying $2.8 million a minute not to go into space.
It's a bit high, isn't it?
I can think of quite a few people. Yeah, it's far too high. I can think of a few people I'd like to send into space for $2.8 million a minute.
I think there's a lot we could pop on that particular capsule. Yeah, get rid of, jettison. Anyway.
It is a bit high up, you're right. Anyway, I don't suppose you wanted to talk about football, did you?
Not really, although I did just want to say that this goes out on a Thursday, but last night, which was Saturday night, the Denmark-Finland game with the awful scenes of Christian Eriksen collapsing and then the TV cameras staying on it so you could see him receiving CPR and everything. I thought it was, I found it quite upsetting.
Yeah, it was horrendous, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was obviously to see him receiving CPR on the pitch. I thought, my God, this is, and the looks of everyone on everyone's faces, the fellow players, the absolute shock.
It was like rubbernecking an accident.
It was, and to see his poor wife or his partner on the side of the pitch with a Denmark shirt and with Eriksen written on the back, looking distraught. I thought, this is not nice viewing. But strangely, I couldn't tear myself away. But obviously the TV cameras did eventually move away, and the game was suspended. But to start it up again later, I thought, my God, how those people would have coped with that and get themselves back in the right frame of mind to carry on.
Well, I don't think they can have done it. I know they said that the players wanted to play on, but I thought to myself, well, crikey, those players are in shock. They don't know what's best for them, do they? Someone should have just said, well, you might want to play on, but we're not playing on. That's that.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like someone getting a head injury. They still want to play on. They said, no, off you come. We need to get that sorted out. And but you can see that. But again, you can't see the emotional distress so easy, can you? No. So, no, you're right. Someone should have taken charge and said, no, we'll play that again, towards the end of the first of next week or whatever, whilst the group stages are still going on. But there we go.
There we go.
I found it shocking. I'm just pleased that he's made a recovery and he seems to be on the mend.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, I didn't want to talk about football, but you dragged that out of me.
So no, I didn't want to talk about football, but you dragged that out of me. So
Go on. What do you want to talk about then?
Well, I wanted to start this episode with a very famous quote.
Oh, Christ.
I know you like a quote. This is, but I don't suppose you remember who this is from or even know who it's from.
I doubt it.
No, the quote is, "You can please some of the people all of the time. You can please all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time."
Yeah. Well, certainly know the quote, but I don't know whose it is.
No, it's often attributed to Abraham Lincoln.
Is it?
But it's not. No, yeah, it comes from a guy called John Lydgate, who was a 15th century monk and poet.
We had plenty. I expect he had plenty of time to sit around thinking about things like that, don't you?
Probably at the end of the day, you see, what have I done today? Positive. I bet I've just made up a really good quote that's going to be around for centuries. Yeah, but it was sort of, I suppose, when I read that, it was I was looking into doing a bit of research because I was inspired by a conversation I was having with someone in recovery who had recently taken up employment in the recovery community, okay, right. a local recovery hub, in another part of the country. And she was frustrated at the amount of perceived success she was achieving. And it reminded me when I started running support groups many years ago, and I couldn't understand why everyone wasn't grasping the concept of recovery. And I remember you and I talked at the time, and you told me about the little story about, or you told me the saying was, if you go into the library, you've never got any chance of reading all of the books, and you've got to be selective, and you can set yourself unrealistic targets. Mm-hmm. I think that these unrealistic targets have always dogged me. That's for sure. It's better now, but it was, I was talking to her and we were discussing about the rates. The rates of success in recovery are extremely low anyway. But also you've got to remember that us addicts or us alcoholics are never recovered. We're always in the process of recovering. There's not an end goal. It's a containment of our condition. So it's really difficult to measure success like that, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. But it strikes me that there's kind of another aspect to that in that conversation that you were having with your friend, which is we've dealt with this in another episode. I expect you able to tell me which bloody series and which number it was, but there's a boundary thing there as well, because there's almost like an assumption that other people not grasping the rudiments of recovery is in some way something to do with you, which of course it isn't. So when so if you're working in the recovery community, you're a professional in it, or you're running support groups in the way that you do, you can't. There's no responsibility in you for other people's recovery. So that sort of frustration sometimes that we feel at things not going well, in an ironic sort of twist, it has a negative impact on us when actually it's got absolutely nothing to do with us at all.
Well, it hasn't. I mean, you can't control every situation in life, can you?
No, there are very few you can control.
Yeah, well, exactly. And when you've got expectations for yourself, and I think, reading between the lines, there was expectations on her from other people as well. You probably end up facing some sort of disappointment, won't you? Because it's because these things aren't you can't influence them to a large degree.
No, it's quite interesting. You say that you were making the assumption that there were expectations placed on her from other people. Do you have a sense of what those expectations were?
I don't. No, I'm assuming that I'm just looking at whenever I've started a new job, for example. We talked about it again in one of our other episodes about the imposter syndrome. You go in there and you don't really feel like you fit in. You don't think you're qualified. You don't think you know enough. And there's expectations that I think you perceive it sometimes that other people think that you should be progressing more than you are. Mm-hmm. And you set yourself these unrealistic targets of trying to progress and become useful. And it makes things incredibly difficult. Mm. But you throw into the mix, you're dealing with the people that are going into her particular rehab she's working in, obviously are pretty mixed up people. Mm. And with the success rate as low as it is, it's going to be a tough call, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But mostly, I think we find that those expectations that we perceive are coming from other people about our level of success or, reaching certain objectives. They're quite often projections of our own expectations on ourselves. It's not actually that other people expect this or that of us. It's that we, for some reason, expect this or that of us. And then we assume that rather than it just being ourselves that are setting these benchmarks, we think that other people are looking at it and looking at us and thinking, well, you should be doing better than that. You should be achieving this. And that's one of the things that creates an even greater level of stress.
So what would you advise someone who struggles with this concept of not being able to please everyone all the time? Because in this scenario, obviously, trying to everyone that comes through the door, you're not going to be able to please them. You're not going to be given what they want, especially in addiction, because some people are coming in without wanting to be there as well, which is another area which we could look at another point. But it's because people sometimes are under a court order or an intervention from friends and family, and they're being forced in there against their will. The rates are going to be low.
But going back to your question about dealing with that expectation on ourselves, I think there's a couple of things there that are worth considering. One goes back to the conversation we were having right at the start today about reflecting on what your day's been like, because I think sometimes we get into that mindset when we focus exclusively on what isn't going well. So it makes it worse when you're in that sort of situation, when you're working with recovering addicts. It's very easy, if you're already doubting your own ability or doubting that you're doing what you should be doing, it's very easy then to become myopic about only considering the things that aren't going well. So you think about all the clients that you've got, or the patients that you might have in your rehab or whatever that aren't recovering, that aren't doing the things that you're hoping that they're going to do. And so in that way, you get a completely imbalanced view of the world. You're focusing on what's not working and you forget about what is working. And that's one of the benefits of doing that reflection, so that you kind of force yourself to take a balanced view of what's happening in your life. But the other thing, which I think is much more significant, is going back and listening to our episode on boundaries, because that is such a boundary issue. It's, that inability to see where our influence ends and someone else's influence begins is very destructive. There is nothing. I mean, we certainly know this is true in recovery. Recovery is an absolutely personal thing. You and you alone are responsible for your recovery. Now, there's a difference between responsibility and other people being able to support and help you. And it's the same for me as a therapist. I can't make anybody change. There's nothing I can do to anyone or say to anyone that is fundamentally going to make life different for them. Effectively, they've got to. I almost use that word journey myself there, but effectively, you can. I can only operate as a guide. That's my role. Yeah, I can't do anything more. And I think as soon as we start to believe that we can have a greater influence than that, we've overstepped a boundary, and we put our own emotional well-being at risk. Yeah,
I can see that boundary. I certainly used to struggle with boundaries like that when I first started to run groups. I remember a girl getting up and running out of the group on one occasion, and I wanted to go after her, and I was the person I was co-facilitating at the time. The person running the group said, "No, don't do that. We can't do that. That again. It's something which we can't influence. She's got to be able to deal with that herself." But I took it as a personal insult that I was helping to run the group, and someone didn't like what I was saying. Yeah. But that phrase come up. I remember the phrase particularly come up at that time. We're not going to be able to please everyone. The majority of people are going to be happy to hear what you've got to say and want to take it on board. Some aren't.
The only thing,
and it took me a long while to get to come to terms with that and to get to grips with that fact. But I'm all right now. It doesn't worry me if there's dissenters or people don't want to engage. Then that is their responsibility and it is down to them. But it's taken me a long time.
The thing that's a mystery to me is that more people don't run out of your groups.
I'll just sit there on my own. Especially on the Zoom ones, I'm just sitting there with a blank screen, just me looking at myself.
I'd say it's an absolute miracle that anyone shows up in the first place. That's what you should be reflecting on as a success.
I've got one person to talk to.
Yeah. Well, that's better than nothing. But actually, you're raising the important point there, which is as much as you kind of reflect on how your day has gone and things that have been successful and things that haven't been successful, and as robust as your emotional boundaries are, there's what you're really talking about there is someone who starts with having unrelenting standards, someone who starts with having an expectation of themselves. And obviously we haven't got time to go into all the reasons why people might hold those unrelenting standards, but you are someone who would, in my opinion, and I probably think in your own opinion, you would be someone that has had a tendency in your life to have unrelenting standards. You know, you would recognize being under, maybe not now, but in the past, being under kind of constant stress, feeling as if you always should be achieving more than you're actually achieving. You would be someone who would equate achievement with value in the past. So the more you achieve, the more valuable you are as a person. Everything has to be done to a high standard. You've only got to look at that bloody Black Sabbath cake that you did for an example of that. You know, if you do anything, even if everybody else says, my God, that looks perfect, you can see nothing but the imperfections in it.
Sure.
There's a kind of need for you to perform better than your expectation or perhaps better than your peers. Very difficult for you to switch off. As a result, your relationships would tend to suffer. True? I mean, I didn't know this was descending into a personal assault upon my flawed character. This is not a personal assault. What I'm describing are typical indicators of someone who's got unrelenting standards.
Oh, okay.
And what you're doing is you're illustrating the point, because you're feeling like all of this that I'm saying is applicable to you. And what I'm actually saying is it is applicable to someone who struggles trying to live up to unrelenting standards all the time. And it sounds like you, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why people who struggle with unrelenting standards fall into addiction is because it's impossible to live like that. You've got to get something's got to happen that gives you a break from that constant, unrelenting progression forwards. And so inevitably, you know, the things that you might fall into are drink and drugs, because it gives you a break.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I've always found, I think, you know, I don't know if you had finished that list that you were going through there.
Well, irritability was another one, which is certainly true of you.
Interrupts people a lot. Well, I'm glad we did this episode now. I'm feeling down. I'll reflect on this at the end of the day. It'll only be, my reflections will be undoubtedly altered about, it's going to revolve really around what the England result is later on.
Yeah, well, don't forget you're not responsible for that. So if it goes badly, it isn't your fault.
Yeah, do you know, it's strange because you have these little rituals, don't you? Well, I do before football games and stuff. Especially when I used to play, I used to have little rituals. And and again, when England games are coming along, you know, there's a particular shirt I have to sort of put on. And
what kind of shirt is it? It's an England shirt.
Well, it's an England shirt, but I won't. I won't wear it out in the street. I'll probably take it. I'll just put it on for a while. I probably told you this before, but when I used to have a season ticket at West Ham, I always used to buy a Mars bar before the game, and I used to tell myself that I'd eat it at half time as long as we weren't losing. And I almost always came home with a Mars bar in my pocket. Ate it on my way through the Blackwall Tunnel in misery. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Even if we have a ritual and it goes wrong, it doesn't get the required outcome, we still insist on trying it again. Yeah,
which is why I always challenge people when they say to me in therapy, you know, I don't want to talk about that. You know, I don't want to tempt fate, or, you know, I don't want to risk karma. You know, it's always think, it's important to delve into this, because living under some sort of misapprehension that always doing this or always doing that is going to avoid anything bad happening to you is a fallacy.
Yeah. No, well, it is, isn't it? It is, isn't it? I mean, when you're looking at these unrealistic targets we set ourselves. Again, when I was doing a little bit of research on it, I think there was a little phrase that came up was saying, now ask yourself, would achieving these goals fulfill you and bring you joy? And I thought, would it? And then I thought, well, perhaps it would. I'm not quite sure, because
where did that come from?
I don't know. It's just when I was doing a bit of research on this,
right?
And that was just a phrase that came up. I mean, right. I can't. I can't remember where I actually found it and what website it was on or whatever, because I go through loads of them and just take bits and pieces out of them. But I quite liked it.
Well, I'm not keen on that, and I'll tell you why. Because it seems to me that it's kind of asking the wrong question, because that question is about understanding how much better I will feel having achieved these things. And I think the problem that we're talking about is actually characterized by not about our ability to feel better, but our ability to feel okay. It actually is the case that we don't feel as if we can rest unless we do them. So we're not doing something that is above the baseline. We're saying, I've got to achieve this, just to feel like I'm okay. That's the problem.
Okay. So, if you let go of those expectations and sort of, could you refocus or reframe your goals? I mean, is that a way of dealing with it?
Yeah, I think the most sustainable way of dealing with it is to challenge that idea that our value as a person is inextricably linked with what we achieve. I think we've talked about this, in lots of different contexts in the past. But if you can find, through some means, therapy or whatever else you do, the realization that achievement is important because growth is important for us as human beings, and feeling like we're worth something, feeling we're significant is also important for us as human beings, but that they are not connected, then I think you can start to change those beliefs. But, somewhere you learned that. Somewhere you've learned that you only are valuable if you achieve things. There are lots of different ways you can learn that.
Yeah, I'd imagine the environment you're brought up in, where the work that is instilled into you, it's going to have an impact throughout your life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you might, as I say, we haven't got time to go into it, but if you grow up in an environment where it feels as if the most predictable way of you being acknowledged or affirmed is when you achieve something, do well at school, or I don't know, you score a goal in the football match or whatever. If you feel like those are the only times when you get acknowledged by the primary caregivers in your life, that's how we develop this idea that, if I achieve things, then I'm valuable, because when I'm not achieving, nobody pays me much attention.
True, that's true. And to using that football analogy about scoring a goal, I think as a kid, I think as same as a lot of kids, you want to play up front, because putting one in the net it's a fantastic feeling, and it's written down. You're on the score sheet at the end of the day. Yeah. And as I got older and ended up playing centre back, there's less of that. You're still doing a very valuable job, but there's less recognition, and I think that's reflected in the way that. It's reflected in football, isn't it? Where the big money goes to those players that are up the front scoring all the goals.
Did I ever tell you about my goal at Railway Rovers?
I was there. I witnessed it. I was pleased. I witnessed your one and only ever goal. To be honest, I think it went down in history because it was never repeated.
Yeah, it's true. It was my one and only goal, which is just as well that I don't suffer from unrelenting standards. In fact, if anything, I've got the opposite problem.
Well, it was a cracking goal. So if you thought every goal you're going to score after that was going to be like that, then you would never achieve. The footy has run through a bit of a vein through this today, and it's not that wasn't intended. But on my gratitude list, I have got that I'm grateful that after a year's delay, we finally have the Euros starting.
Yeah, I could understand you having that. Yes. Well, actually, I've got something which is quite similar, really, and that is, I suppose it's related to the football starting, but it feels like a more familiar summer, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
It feels like, I recognise that there'll be people listening to this who can't stand football and are probably spitting at the appliance on which they're listening, but there's that sort of familiarity feels like it's been missing. Well, obviously it has been missing a lot in the last year. And sometimes those things that you feel like you can just put your hand on and you think, oh yeah, this is what summers used to feel like. Yeah, that's quite nice. So I agree with that one.
It is. It's slightly strange because we've got an odd year that doesn't end in an even figure. So 21, and we've got a football tournament going on because it's always the even years we have either the World Cup or the Euros.
Yeah, I wondered how that was affecting you emotionally.
I don't like it, I've got to say.
I wonder. It wasn't only that. I was also wondering how you were feeling about having a tournament called Euro 2020 in 2021. I thought that would be driving you to distraction.
Well, it does, especially when you've got it up in the background behind the presenters in the studio, and it says Euro 2020, and we're a year down the line. So yeah, it doesn't sit neatly, I've got to say.
Have you had to change the lettering on your Euro 2020 wall chart?
Well, I printed one off, so I was able to edit it accordingly. So yes.
Did you really edit it?
Of course. I'm not having that on there. Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, you've had an opportunity here to reframe. You know, you've had an opportunity to challenge an unrelenting standard there, just to look at the 2020 signage behind the presenters in the studio, recognise that it's 2021, and just let it go. For God's sake,
yeah.
Change your bloody wall chart.
Oh no, I've let it go now. Mentally, no, you've challenged me on it. That's it. I've changed.
Yeah,
You're a good therapist. So what about you then? Have you got anything on your...
Well, I just told you mine. I said I feel grateful for the familiarity of the summer.
Oh,
it's nice.
You sort of piggybacked on mine then, or did you have that written down anyway?
No, I had that anyway. So it was,
I see.
It was one of those strange coincidences that what you said actually did dovetail with what I was thinking, which is rare. I'll tell you the other thing I was grateful for this week. Do you remember a few weeks ago you talked about that news story you'd seen where some people had seen a wild animal up a tree and it turned out to be a croissant?
Yes.
I saw one this week. Apparently, I can't remember where it was, somewhere on the coast in the UK, but they'd found this, what they thought to be unknown exotic bird, this big kind of orange bird, and they thought, we don't know what that is. And when they got hold of it, they realised it was a seagull that was covered in curry powder.
My God. Poor bird, though. Poor bird. Was it alive, I assume?
It was alive, yeah. It was flapping around all yellowy orange, and it had a bit of madras all over it.
It was a Vindaloo goal. So there was only, when I went onto the Spotify search, there was only one track that I could use for this.
What word did you put in?
Well, I put, you can't please all the people all the time.
Oh, bloody hell. I'm not surprised there was only one. I'm surprised you found one track.
Well, I knew the track anyway. I've sort of framed the whole episode around the Spotify search, if you like, on the track I wanted to use. Yeah, yes, it is called exactly that. You can't please all the people all the time. It's by 9 Below Zero, one of my favourite bands.
Oh, yeah.
So I've shoehorned them in, really. It was one of the bands I used to watch a lot in the 80s, and it was one of the last bands I saw before lockdown. So I'm putting them in.
So if you're going to start proposing titles for episodes around songs that you like,
no,
I'm going to start doing that. Next week's episode is called "Don't Stop Believing."
That's a dodgy.
It's about having some faith in your recovery.
Is it? Okay. Well, I'm quite happy to hand over the duty of writing the notes for next week, and for you to lead it. You can do that, but you know full well I won't write any notes. It'd just be a shambles. We'd just be sitting here looking at each other.
No, I'll think of things to say, but you won't like it because you won't know. You won't be familiar with the structure of the episode, will you?
No, I'll be very uncomfortable.
I'll do Spotify lists right up front.
Just to make me properly uncomfortable. Yeah.
Well, I'm challenging you to get out of your comfort zone.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I'll remain challenged for a while on that one.
All right. Okay. Good.
See you later.
Bye. Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/ sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.